Well, it looks like my old dinosaur toys video is a hit, and some of you really want to see another one of these. Alright, I'll play along, but I'm giving this one a theme. That theme being that all the dinosaur toys I'm playing with in this video are from the Jurassic Park franchise. Doesn't matter if they're big, small, hard, soft, squishy, as long as they've got that JP logo somewhere, then they qualify. With a few exceptions, but we'll be getting to those later. Hi everybody, sorry my head couldn't make an appearance for this one, but let's just get into the toys, shall we? Alright, so starting small with these two baby dinosaurs right here. Well, one of them's not really a dinosaur, but you know what I mean. We have this little baby Triceratops right here, and this little baby Pteranodon right there. And I believe I had a baby raptor at some point, but it's missing. I'm not entirely sure where that went off to. I kind of gathered these in a hurry, so if they're somewhere around here hiding in plain sight, then I guess that's my bad. But this Triceratops one, I don't actually know. No, this Triceratops one, I know where this came from. This came with the Ellie Sattler figure from the first movie's toy line. This Pteranodon, though, I'm not entirely sure. Or at least I think that's where this one came from anyway. But this Pteranodon one, I'm not entirely sure where this actually originated. Maybe it was with Nick Van Owen from The Lost World, but I'm unclear about that. Either way, for what these are decent little figurines. They're, you know, just kind of cute little baby dinosaur toys. There isn't really a ton to say. Triceratops one is, you know, you can tell it's kind of trying to be like a representation of what a baby version of the adult Triceratops toy from the first toy line would look like. It's got the itty bitty little horns. It looks very, you can definitely tell the design influence that this one had from the original concept art for the baby Triceratops that was going to be in the movie, but didn't end up making the final cut. And then as for this Pteranodon, I mean, there's not much to say. I don't think this one looks as nice as the Triceratops does. I mean, it's like a totally different kind of figure, but in general, I think the paint, especially around the head, is kind of sloppy, and the eye paint especially. Well, I don't know, let me get a better look at this. Eye paint isn't too bad or anything, but it just kind of seems weird to have the pupils be clearly the exact same color as the rest of the head, and they just kind of, you know, glob some of the black paint over it. And then you can kind of see on the top here, the blending of the crest to the rest of the head is a little odd looking. It's like, it doesn't really look super natural, but honestly, it's not really a big deal. These aren't really meant to be full like figures anyway that you would actually buy on their own. They came with other stuff. These are just meant to be kind of a nice little bonus for the actual figure that you're getting in addition to it. So that's they're okay. Moving on to something that is meant to be a figure on its own. This is the Raptor from this is from the first movie, but the main Raptor toy for the Lost World is very similar, just different paint jobs. Lost World had a bunch more Raptor designs outside of this one though, but I think, and this one, actually the first toy line also had a lot of different Raptors too. Well, two to my knowledge. You had this one, and then there was the electronic Raptor that had screams and the like, but this one might not make sounds, but it does do this. So that's pretty neat. And on my particular Raptor, yep, the face is kind of falling off a little bit. You kind of have to really press it together because this is what it was supposed to look like. But it doesn't want to stick. So for now, I guess my Raptor will just have a perpetually falling off face until it actually falls off fully. I mean, hey, we had the Carnotaurus foot falling off in the last one of these that I did, so anything's possible. Don't think I'm going to be doing that on camera though. Anyway, you can tell from this one that they didn't really put in the effort as much to actually make this look like the Raptors from the movie. Even down to the color scheme, they weren't this stripy in the movie. I mean, there was like some subtle striping, I think, but it definitely wasn't this pronounced. And the feet, this always kind of bugged me. The feet, you can see them Obviously they can't make the claws too sharp because it's a children's toy and they don't want people hurting themselves. But the actual foot shape to me just always looked way too stumpy. It looked kind of like an elephant's foot, which doesn't really work for these guys. Also, if I can bring this up to the microphone. Yeah, you hear that? You hear that squeaking? Oh, that creaking, isn't that just awful? But that's what happens. Toys, they get old and they start squeaking. One thing that I can still appreciate is the positioning of the arms. One of them is in, well, not really the proper pose, scientifically speaking, but it's in the proper pose in relation to how it looked in the movie. But one of the wrists is kind of like swung outward, like this. You can kind of see it there. It looks like it's about to give a high five, or high 3 in this case. Or maybe it's halfway through doing this. I don't know. Anyway, that's one of the Raptor toys. That will not be the last Raptor figure I feature in this video, but I'll get to that later. Moving on to something a little more recent and actually awesome is the Allosaurus toy. I don't quite remember when this came out, but I think it was definitely the early 2010s. I think maybe like 2013-ish, kind of around there. Anyway, it came with a human figure, and this was around the time that I think the Jurassic Park franchise was just kind of doing whatever it wanted, because no new movies were coming out, no new really anything major outside of maybe the video game was being released, so they were just kind of making other stuff, like a lot of comic book series and a lot of that kind of thing, and of course a new toy line. And this one really stands out to me is that this doesn't look or feel much like an original like a traditional Jurassic Park figure at all. This makes, in fact, I think this was around the time that Hasbro got the license to make toys. No, it was afterwards, because they first got it for Jurassic Park 3, and this certainly does not seem up to the quality standards of a Hasbro Jurassic Park figure. In fact, it far and away exceeds it, because it's just like, look at this thing. I mean, not only is the sculpt very nice, but it's very well painted. It's got an interesting color palette. I actually really like the way this guy looks. It's even got some cool design details with these like spines here that, you know, it's a little bit of artistic liberty, because as far as we know, Allosaurus didn't really have those, or maybe it could have, we don't know. That kind of stuff doesn't really tend to fossilize. But still, I mean, you got them all cool looking, and the main thing that impresses me about this guy, look at the amount of articulation on him. I mean, the arms can like swing outward. That's not traditionally included. The legs can move. A lot of the older Jurassic Park figures couldn't do that. And you can even, at the risk of breaking it, you can kind of bend the ankles backward. Sure, it looks kind of awkward that way. It kind of looks like he broke his leg, but you could do it. Let's see if I can get him to stand on his own. This isn't a perfectly hard surface, so it might be a little trickier that way, but I can't say I didn't try. Also, if I flip it around, you can see here the battle damage on the side, or dino damage as it was called. I believe it is meant to be shaped like Sorna, the island from the second and third movies, and also I think they go back there in Camp Cretaceous. I don't know, I didn't watch that far. But even though this is just a really nice figure on its own, very high quality, especially considering it's a Hasbro JP toy, they still couldn't resist including kind of a stupid gimmick, so he can do this. Alright, now moving on to something you might have seen. A past videos of mine. Oh, he's poking his head up. Or I guess her head, maybe. It's the juvenile or young Tyrannosaurus from the original toy line, with missing the little skin piece, because you know when you get these on eBay, because that's where I got this one years and years ago. At this point, you just kind of have to take what you can get, and being able to get one for pretty reasonable cost, but it missing this part, it's like you just gotta make those sacrifices sometimes. Anyway, this guy's, or girl, I guess, is awesome. It's actually colored a lot more like how the adult T-Rex in the movie was colored, compared to the original compared to the actual adult T-Rex, which was colored more like how it was described in the novel. Speaking of the novel, this T-Rex, this young Tyrannosaurus, didn't really appear in the movie, at least the first one, but it actually had a somewhat sizable, well, let's call it a reoccurring role in the book, and I believe that's what this figure is meant to represent, is the juvenile Tyrannosaurus from the book, even though it's colored like the movie. Really, if you think about it, this is a representation of a novel-only character, so wouldn't it make more sense for it to have the novel colors, and the one that is representative of the T-Rex that was actually in the movie have the movie's colors? You figure it out. It's really a nice figure though. Like, you know, having this, actually being able to hold it, you can look at it in like videos and whatnot, but until you get a hold of one of these old like Kenner figures, you really don't appreciate how actually sturdily they were made. I mean, it's lasted this long. When this toy is what, 30 years old by this point, it's held up surprisingly well. I mean, articulation's a little lacking. It's just the arms, and I guess you can kind of count everything else. It's flexible, but it's not articulated. But you know, I really like the material. I really like how it feels to hold. They kind of really went all out, considering that these were just sort of, you know, children's toys, but they really tried to give kids the best product they could, even if realistically I don't know how well a lot of kids treated these toys back in the day, but still. Also, gotta appreciate, I don't know if this was intentional, but it is kind of neat that they included a quasi-mouth opening gimmick here, with you being able to squeeze the neck and it opens the mouth. I feel like that wasn't intentional, but people just figured it out anyway. Alright, now I mentioned the adult T-Rex from the first toy line earlier, and I mentioned how it had the color schemes from the book, but one thing that I feel like was almost certainly that color scheme also carried over into was... this guy, actually it might be a girl, I don't really know. It's hard to tell these things. This puppet, this T-Rex puppet from, not the first toy line actually, this is from the Lost World, which is weird because there wasn't an equivalent T-Rex toy, like non-puppet toy that actually looked like this. This was an original thing. I don't know which T-Rex this is meant to be representing. I'm leaning towards the doe, but I'm unclear about that. It could not be trying to represent either. It could just be a generic T-Rex toy. Anyway, I've owned this one for quite a while. It's a little worn out, as you can see, especially in the neck area. It's quite limp in the tail, drooping a little bit. I thought this was meant to be an accurate franchise. Why are we having the tail droopage? Why are we having the tail draggage, Jurassic Park? Come on, I want to know. Anyway, I can't do much about that, but I can assist a little bit in the neck droopage by just... Oh god, you ever like have that moment where you kind of like think about the practice of puppetry and how it involves you shoving your hand in something and controlling it? That just kind of makes you go like, ugh, these things were alive, this would be kind of wrong now, wouldn't it? Even when they aren't alive, it's like, do I really feel good about this? Is this what I get my sick kicks out of? Just me? Oh, okay. Well, anyway, yeah, this is meant to be a puppet. And once you get it in there, you know, it's just kind of your standard hand puppet. We can like open and close the mouth and kind of try to open it wider. But I remember oftentimes I wouldn't even bother trying to use this as a puppet. I would just use this as a toy. I would just kind of have it walk around and I would control it with my hand. Well, you control it with your hands either way, but I wouldn't like actually try to puppeteer it. I would just kind of shake it around and have it do stuff, just go like this with it. Now you can kind of tell from this angle, or really from most angles, that the arms are a little oversized, and that is definitely something that also can be said about the next T-Rex figure I'm featuring in this video. Spoilers. But paint job, some of this is admittedly my doing. Some of the paint is starting to wear just a tiny bit, but for the most part it's held up well. You know, the more you mess around with these and the more of these you see, the more you realize that Kenner really cared about actually making things that would last a long time. Man, I miss them. I don't even know if I was alive when they were around, or when they were at their peak, but man, I still miss them. Alright, one more thing before we move on to the next thing. I don't know if you've been able to notice thus far, but if I can kind of lean this in here, you see that slit in the back of the throat there? Yeah, that wasn't a manufacturing decision, that was a me decision. One JP toy that I have never been able to get my hands on, and at this point it's becoming increasingly likely that I probably never will, is the Bull T-Rex figure from the Lost World toy line, which had the gimmick where it's the slit in the back of the throat, where you can shove a figure in there of like a person or maybe even a smaller dinosaur and kind of have it look like he's eating them. I wanted that figure, but obviously couldn't find it, and at this point I don't really care, but still, at the time I really wanted it. I wanted something that could kind of do that. They could have that gimmick to it, but because I couldn't get the actual Bull T-Rex figure, I just decided, screw it, I'll just make my own Bull T-Rex figure. And long story short, a knife was taken, or maybe it was scissors, I don't remember, but a sharp object was taken to the back of this poor T-Rex puppet's throat, and now it can do the thing where it looks like it's eating another dinosaur. In fact, let me test it out now to see if it still works. Okay, sorry little baby Triceratops, but you know, natural selection, you kind of walked straight into the T-Rex's mouth here, and yeah, you're paying the ultimate price for it. Oh wait, I should be puppeting this thing, shouldn't I? Alright, here we go. And that's that. Still works. Look at him. Look, nothing. Oh, uh-oh. And he passed it. Undigested, apparently. Live to cute another day. Cute's not a verb. Alright, next up we have another T-Rex puppet from the Lost World, but this one I remember being a lot more impressed by, which is weird because it's not really that much bigger, and honestly, the more I look at it, the more I think it's kind of worse. Now this is clearly meant to be, I had I wasn't entirely sure of what the last one I showed was meant to be representing, which individual from the movie was meant to be representative of. This one I have no doubts about. This is clearly meant to be the male, the buck, because it's green, and the male T-Rex in the movie was green. While this thing is pretty impressive, I mean, like, you can see it's quite sizable as well. It's not, like, exactly the greatest figure in the world. I mean, first of all, the puppeteer's hole here is just so large and intrusive. And rather than being closer to like being on the underside like it was on the last one, here they just put it in the obvious spot. It's just so, I mean, why am I even trying to be sly about this? It looks like he has a giant anus. Also, while we're in this hind region, let's talk about his short little stupid tail here with the very obvious glue seams where you can tell where it was glued on. Yeah, oh, and oversized arms too. That doesn't help matters. Although, honestly, not as bad as it was on the other one. Kind of nice underbelly, though. Yeah, look at that scale detailing. They didn't have to include that, but they did, and that was nice of them. Anyway, oh, JP logo. Wait, all these have a JP logo. Wait, not all of them have JP logos. I'll be getting to those later. But anyway, that's I can't really say much about. I can't really say much else about this guy. Hang on, let me get the other one. Bam! I am in control of both T-Rexes, and now I can make them fight. Yay! Future me, add in sound effects to make this epic. And also maybe delete the original audio because it just sounds like this. Actually, let's cut the video for a change and instead just play the audio to this. Why yes, some dirty minds already caught that. That does in fact sound like two balloon animals humping. Okay, now let's have the makeup. Let's have the makeup. I said make up, not make out. Just like, I don't know, apologize to one another. But do it in T-Rexese, so that we have to have a translator down here. Touching. All right, now we have the last, well, actually second to last semi-big one here, but last big one that has anything to do with Jurassic Park, or Jurassic World, I guess in this instance. It's the Indominus Rex from the first Jurassic World's toy line, aka the one, like, actually kinda half-decent toy from that line. Because if you aren't aware, the Jurassic World toy line is infamous for being really crappy and just generally not having very good figures to offer, but this is an exception. This is actually a fairly decent toy. The paint job isn't that bad. It's got some of that nice rubbery material. It doesn't feel quite the same as it did on the Kenner figures. This one feels a little more cheapy, a little squishier, but it still doesn't feel that bad, and it does a decent job at capturing the likeness of the Indominus Rex from the movie. There are supposed to be electronic features in here, but I think by this point the batteries have run out. I honestly don't think that I changed the batteries in this thing since 2015 when I got it, so or maybe it was 2016, I can't remember. I just know the movie came out in 2015. So yeah, quite a while since its last battery change, but you know, what can you do? And it's also got some added I mean, the arms don't really count as articulation because they just activate the light and sound feature, but the legs can move. Tail can't though. And you know, screw holes galore, because that's nice. Alright, now backtracking in size a little bit, we're gonna go back to some raptorial territory with this one. Now you may be wondering, why didn't I talk about this immediately after I did the one from the original? Well, that's because this one isn't actually official. Even though it's based off of the one of the Raptor figures. There were a lot of Raptor figures released for the third movie. This one I just sort of got from like this weird cheapo boxo dinosaurs that I can't really remember where. Probably at a gift shop or something somewhere, but anyway. Yeah, this is what it looks like. Admittedly, actually kind of cool color schemes, cool colors I think on this one. You know, like the kind of like the green mixed with the red, kind of looks like a rooster, honestly. Fitting enough, I guess. But yeah, it actually looks pretty cool for just kind of like a cheap knockoff. They could have just done a straight up mold copy and copied everything about both the sculpt and the paint, just done it worse, but they didn't do that, which I appreciate. Of course, the paint job is a little sloppy, but based on what I've seen, it isn't exactly immaculate on the original figure either. It still has all the same articulation, to my knowledge. You know, you can move the arms and the head and the legs and even the tail, so actually some decent posability, but yeah, it's alright for being essentially, well, it's a bootleg, you know, but for being a bootleg, it's not so bad. And then the same can also be said for the Spinosaurus, which I believe came from the same box set. Terrible scaling on these two, by the way, but that's more of a problem with the original figures for these than it is for these renditions of it. They did have a big electronic Spinosaurus, which was really cool, and I kind of wish I could have gotten that, but alas, I think my JP toy collecting days are over. Now I'm just kind of showing off what I got, and this one is pretty alright. Look at him. He can sit down. Aw, he's such a good boy. Alright, so we've been over most of the Jurassic Park toys, or Jurassic World toys that I've got, but I think I have time for one more. A little bonus. It's kind of in a similar vein, but not really. Just give me a second. Feast your eyes on this. Now, this is not a dinosaur. It is a Zilla. A one of many Zilla puppets that was made for the 1998 TriStar Godzilla movie. He's very hairy, and I mean, like, I just have tons of hairs all over him. I don't know where those came from, probably dog hair or something. There's some decent puppets that came out of this line, but this one is just not up there with their best. It's got the kind of soft body, and like these really bad fins or scoots or whatever. Like, you can see them, they're all floppy, they're not stable at all. And if you look at this is a weird thing. This is a really weird thing about this. If you look at the head, you'll see that the molding doesn't stop when the actual teeth does. So you still have some like molded mouth to go before you actually get to the open mouth part. It's really weird. I don't know why they did that. It would honestly be more, I feel like it would be just more plastic to mold than if they just kind of left it empty. And of course the paint starting to chip here. Don't know how much of that is my fault or how much of it is just not being the best paint and the best material. Arms can just kind of flail wildly. It's, I don't know. This one, well, I think the tail is a bendy wire. This one is just a kind of a piece of crap, but you know, it's got its charm to it. Look at him. I can make him throw a little hissy fit. Ooh, I can make him slam his. I can make him slam it on the table. I can make him slam his hand on the table. Look at him. Look at him. He's like a baby. He's like a misbehaving toddler or something. All right, cool, you little brat. Get your green beans. And thus concludes another trip down plastic manufactured memory lane. If you've been enjoying this series and want me to keep making them, then feel free to tell me in the comments down below. If you absolutely hated this video even more than the last one and never want me to make another one of these again, then also feel free to tell me that, because that's still technically engagement. Thank you for watching, have a great day, and until next time, see ya.